Good day, everyone. For today's topic, we will be discussing about a law that governs the medical technology profession. That is RA 8981, the PRC Modernization Act of 2000. This Republic Act is an act modernizing the Professional Regulation Commission, repealing for the purpose Presidential Decree numbered 223, entitled Creating the Professional Regulation Commission and prescribing its powers and functions, and also for other purposes. Let's first trace the history of the Professional Regulation Commission. This PRC class was first created as a national government agency by Presidential Decree number 223, dated June 22, 1973, which is signed by then the President Ferdinand E. Marcos, mandating to enforce the laws regulating the various professions. It was previously called the Office of the Board of Examiners, which was created by Republic Act number 546 on June 17, 1950, under the aegis of the Civil Service Commission. The PRC became operational on January 4, 1974. The office was attached to the Office of the President for General Direction and Coordination. On December 9, 1974, the implementing rules and regulations of Presidential Decree number 223 were promulgated, paving the way for standardization of rules and procedures for the 33 professions then under the Civil Service Commission. On December 5, 2000, President Joseph Ejercito Estrada signed Republic Act number 8981, otherwise known as the PRC Modernization Act of 2000. The implementing rules and regulations were adopted on February 15, 2001 through PRC Resolution number 1, Series of 2001. I hope you're taking down notes since not everything is found in the study materials that I have uploaded. So let's continue. Just a recap, the Professional Regulations Commission is a government commission that oversees the regulation of professionals in different fields through enforcing regulatory policies and licensing of professions and occupations under its jurisdiction. If our school and our college has our own vision mission, expect that the PRC also have their own vision mission. Let's read it. The vision of PRC is that the Professional Regulation Commission is the instrument of the Filipino people in securing for the nation a reliable, trustworthy, and progressive system of determining the competence of professionals by credible and valid licensure examinations and standards of professional practice that are globally recognized. While their mission is to deliberately, scientifically, and consistently determine the competence of professionals through the provision of professional standards and judicious issuance of professional license. They also provided mnemonics for PRC. It stands for professionalism and integrity, responsibility, unity, and accountability, and C stands for competence and excellence. With the passing of RA 8981, the Commission exercises three functions. Number 1, executive function. Number 2, quasi-legislative functions. And number 3, quasi-judicial functions. When we say executive function, it deals with the implementation, administration, and enforcement of regulatory policies of the national government with the maintenance of professional and occupational standards and ethics, and the enforcement of the rules and regulations. In the quasi legislative office, this is where the formulation of rules and policies for PRC is done. While for quasi judicial or judiciary, it is where investigation of unlawful or inappropriate and destructive behavior of examinees and professionals will be put into litigation. It had also set its new thrusts and priorities such as customer focused service, modernization through full computerization and restructuring, integrity of licensure examinations, good governance, protection and promotion of Filipino professionals, and support to national development priorities. The PRC serves more than 4.3 million professionals from 43 various regulated professions and the hundreds of thousands of aspiring professionals who take the licensure examinations every year. Thus, PRC stakeholders include the professionals, would be professionals, accredited professional organizations, foreign professionals seeking temporary permit to practice their professions in the country, schools and academe, and other government agencies. So much for PRC class. Let's proceed to the enumeration of the composition, qualifications, and roles of the Medical Technology Board of Examiners. The Medical Technology Board of Examiners, as stated in Republic Act 5527, it is a three-man commission. The Board of Examiners for Medical Technology has a chairman who is a pathologist that is appointed by the President of the Philippines from a list submitted by the Philippine Society of Pathologists, and two members who are registered medical technologists still appointed by the President of the Philippines from among a list submitted by the Philippine Association of Medical Technologists. Each one of them will serve a term of 3 years, provided that the first board to be created, one member who shall act as a chairman, shall serve for 3 years, one member for 2 years, and the third member for 1 year. And also provided further that the first members of the Board of Examiners for Medical Technology shall be issued a certificate of registration as medical technologist without prior examination in accordance with the provisions of this act. It is also stipulated in Republic Act number 5527 that the Board of Examiners or no member of this board shall be allowed more than one reappointment. The President of the Philippines shall fill the vacancy that may occur, but the appointee shall serve only the unexpired term of the incapacitated member. For those who want to reread this section of RA 5527, you can find it in the Board of Examiners for Medical Technology in Section 7. What are the requirements to become a Board of Examiners for Medical Technology? Number one, of course, you have to be a Filipino citizen with good moral character. He or she must be a qualified pathologist or duly registered medical technologist of the Philippines with a degree of Bachelor of Science in Medical Technology or Bachelor of Science in Hygiene. Usually class in the University of the Philippines, they call themselves Bachelor of Science in Public Health or Hygiene. Okay? Another one is they have been in the practice of laboratory medicine or medical technology for at least 10 years prior to his appointment. And he or she is not a member of the faculty of any medical technology school or have any pecuniary interest, either direct or indirect, in such institution. It is also stipulated in RA 5527 that the Commissioner of Civil Service shall be the executive officer of the board and shall conduct the examinations given by it. The Secretary of the Board of Examiners, appointed in accordance with Section 10 of Act numbered 4007 as amended, shall also be the Secretary of the Board. He shall keep a register of all persons to whom certificates of registration have been granted. Each member of the board shall receive a sum of 10 pesos for each applicant examined and 5 pesos for each applicant granted a certificate of registration without examination. So this can be found in the compensation of the members of the Board of Examiners in Section 10 of RA 5527. So it is very important, class, that you familiarize the Medical Technology Act of 1969, RA 5527. The Board of Examiners is vested with authority and required conformably with the provisions of this Act to administer the provisions of this Act. They can also administer oaths in connection with the administration of this Act. They can issue, suspend, and revoke certificates of registration for the practice of medical technology. They can also look into conditions affecting the practice of medical technology in the Philippines and, whenever necessary, adopt such measures as may deem proper for the maintenance of good ethics and standards in the practice of medical technology. They will also investigate such violations of this Act or of the rules and regulations issued thereunder as may come to the jurisdiction of the Board, and for this purpose issue subpoena and subpoena duces tecum to secure appearance of witnesses and promulgations of documents in connection with charges presented to the Board. And lastly, they can also draft such rules and regulations as may be necessary to carry out the provisions of this Act, provided that the same shall be issued only after the approval of the President of the Philippines. This can also be found under the functions and duties of the Board in Section 11 of RA 5527. Any member of the Board may be removed by the President of the Philippines for neglect of duty, incompetency, malpractice, or unprofessional, unethical, immoral, or dishonorable conduct after having been given opportunity to defend himself in a proper administrative investigation, provided that during the process of investigation, the President shall have the power to suspend such member under investigation and appoint a temporary member in his place. This can be found in where? Section 12, Removal of Board Members. Let's proceed to the pertinent laws and executive orders governing RA 8981, the PRC Modernization Act of 2000. Remember that Presidential Decree number 223 created the Professional Regulation Commission, and it is where the definition of its powers and functions are stipulated. So, PD 223 is a three-man commission to be known as a Professional Regulation Commission, which shall be attached to the Office of the President for general direction and coordination. Of course, the commission shall be headed by one full-time commissioner and two full-time associate commissioners, all to be appointed by the President for a term of 9 years without reappointment to start from the time they assume office, except the first two associate commissioners who shall be appointed, one for 6 years and the other for 3 years. And thereafter, any vacancy in the commission shall be filled for the unexpired term only with the most senior of the associate commissioners succeeding the commissioner at the expiration of his term, either resignation or even removal from post. No person shall be appointed chairman or member of the commission unless he is at least 40 years of age, familiar with the principles and methods of professional regulation and or licensing, and has at least 5 years of executive or managerial experience. If you want to read more regarding Presidential Decree number 223, the one that I have said previously is found in Section 2, which is entitled Composition. You can download all of this and you may find it under www.prc.gov.ph. So, what are the powers of the Commission? They can administer, implement, and enforce the regulatory policies of the national government with respect to the regulation and licensing of the various professions and occupations under its jurisdiction, including the maintenance of professional and occupational standards and ethics, and enforcement of the rules and regulations relative to this act. The Commission can perform any and all acts, enter into contracts, make such rules and regulations, and issue such orders and other administrative issuances as may be necessary in the execution and implementation of its functions and the improvement of its services. The Commission can review, coordinate, integrate, and approve the policies, resolutions, rules, and regulations, orders, or decisions promulgated by the various boards with respect to the profession or occupation under their jurisdictions, including the result of their licensure examination, but their decisions on administrative cases shall be final and executory unless appealed to the Commission within 30 days from the date of promulgation. The Commission also functions to administer and conduct the licensure examinations of the various boards according to the rules and regulations promulgated by it. They can also determine and fix the places and dates of examinations, appoint supervisors and room examiners from among the employees of the government or private individuals who have been trained by the Commission for that purpose, who shall be entitled to a daily allowance of not less than 10 pesos for every examination day actually attended. They can also use the buildings and facilities of public and private schools and for examination purposes. The Commission can approve the release of examination results as well. The Commission keeps and maintains a register of authorized practitioners of the profession or occupation. They issue certificates of registration or licenses signed by all the members of the board concerned and the commissioner with the official seal of the board affixed. The Commission have custody of all the records of the various boards, including their examination papers, minutes of deliberation, records of administrative cases and investigations, and examination results. The Commission can also determine, fix, and collect the amount to be charged for examination, registration, registration without examination, licenses, annual registration fees, certifications, surcharges, and other fees not specified under the provisions of Republic Act No. 6511 or amend the rates provided thereunder subject to approval by the Office of the President. The next following functions of the Commission are not found in your notes, so kindly write this down. The Commission can appoint, subject to the provisions of existing laws, officials and employees of the Commission as are necessary in the effective performance of its functions and responsibilities, prescribe their duties, and fix their compensation. They can also organize or reorganize the structure of the Commission, create or abolish positions, change the designation of existing positions to meet changing conditions or as the need thereof arises, provided that such changes shall not affect the employment status of the incumbents, reduce their ranks and or salaries, nor result in separating them from the services. The Commission must submit and recommend to the President of the Philippines nominees for appointment as members of the various boards from among those nominated by the bona fide professional organizations accredited by the Commission to fill existing or probable vacancies. The Commission may, upon the recommendation of the board concerned, approve the registration of and authorize the issuance of a certificate of registration with or without examination to foreigner who is registered under the laws of his or her country, provided that the requirements for the registration or licensing in said foreign state or country are substantially the same as those required and contemplated by the laws of the Philippines, and that the laws of such foreign state or country allow the citizens of the Philippines to practice the same profession on the same basis and grant the same privileges as the subject or citizens of such foreign state or country, provided finally that the applicant shall submit competent and conclusive documentary evidence confirmed by the Department of Foreign Affairs showing that this country's existing laws permit citizens of the Philippines to practice the profession under the rules and regulations governing citizens thereof. The Commission is also hereby authorized to prescribe additional requirements or grant certain privileges to foreigners seeking registration in the Philippines. The Commission shall have general supervision over foreign nationals who are authorized by existing laws or granted special permits to practice their profession temporarily in the Philippines to see that the terms and conditions for their employment are strictly observed and adhered to. The Commission can prescribe or revise, in conjunction with the board concerned and the Secretary of Education and Culture or his authorized representative, collegiate courses, the completion of or graduation from which shall be a prerequisite for admission into the practice of the profession concerned. The Commission can also exercise general supervision over the members of the various boards. They also need to promulgate such rules and regulations as may be necessary to effectively implement policies with respect to the regulation and practice of the profession. They must also perform such other functions and duties as may be necessary to carry out effectively the various provisions of professional regulatory laws, decrees, or orders. The Presidential Decree Number 657 amended Section 3 of Paragraph J of Section 5 of Presidential Decree 223 on the creation of the Professional Regulation Commission and which prescribe its powers and functions. Presidential Decree Number 657 consists of 3 sections, including the effectivity of this decree dated February 19, 1975. Shown on the screen, class, is the one found in your notes, the amended part of the Presidential Decree Number 657. Kindly read that for me and internalize and understand what are the amendments or changes done by this PD decree to the PD 223. Next one is Executive Order Number 200. During the term of Attorney Hermogenes P. Pobre as a commissioner in 1992, Executive Order Number 200 institutionalized the partial computerization of the licensure examinations, which is perhaps one of the most important advances made in the Commission. The CPA licensure examinations were piloted using computerized application forms. In 1993, the full implementation of computerized examinations in 15 professions was made possible through the use of the test question data bank and the optical mark reader for the checking of papers. This innovation not only made the load of providing results to examiners easier, but also provided a faster and more accurate delivery of results. Another law that governs RA 8981 is the PRC Resolution Number 11, Series of 2011, which prescribes the guidelines for the registration of medical laboratory technicians under Section 21 of the Medical Technology Act of 1969. Included in this resolution are the procedures and requirements for the applicants to comply with. Republic Act number 8981 or the PRC Modernization Act of 2000 made the delivery of results faster by enabling the PRC to publish them 3 days after the examination has taken place. Furthermore, statistical reports of school performance were made available also for viewing. As what I have said on the first part of this lecture, that RA 8981 has 21 sections and an effectivity clause. We are now on the last part of our discussion, the legal issues and concerns relating to Republic Act 8981 or the PRC Modernization Act of 2000. Some of the legal issues and concerns in the PRC include the coverage and scope of examination, issuance of license certificates, revocation of licenses, torts and negligence in professional practices, malpractice, other requirements set for applying as Board of Examiners, and the procedures of making corrections in the examination ratings. During the board examinations class, you will expect that the coverage and scope of the exam must be patterned from all the subjects in the course or the profession that is being practiced. If ever the Board of Examiners give items that are outside of the course of the profession, then that is subject for questioning. That's why it's considered to be a legal issue. I think the main issue with regards to license certificates are the delay in processing and releasing of these certificates, while the revocation of the license are very common if you have negligence or malpractices during the course of your work. Depending on the gravity of offense committed, other issues and concerns include administrative procedure, period of investigation, procedure of making an appeal, procedure of applying foreign reciprocity, and period of settling disputes in work-related cases. What happens during an administrative investigation of the PRC? The administrative investigation of the PRC is also included in Republic Act 5527. Some of the provisions are stated in the screen. It says there that administrative investigation shall be conducted by at least 2 members of the board with 1 legal officer sitting during the investigation. The existing rules of evidence shall be observed during all administrative proceedings. The respondents shall be entitled to be represented by counsel or be heard in person, to have a speedy and public hearing, to confront and cross-examine witnesses against him or her, and to all other rights guaranteed by the Constitution. The board may, after giving proper notice and hearing to the party concerned, reprimand an erring medical technologist or revoke or suspend his certificate of registration for the causes mentioned in the next preceding section or for causes enumerated in Section 29 of this Act. A medical technologist's license may also be revoked for unprofessional conduct, malpractice, incompetency or serious ignorance or gross negligence in the practice of medical technology. No penalty of revocation shall be imposed unless there is a unanimous vote of all the 3 members of the board. The board may by majority vote, impose the penalty of reprimand or suspension, the latter, however, not to exceed 2 years. When the penalty of suspension or revocation is imposed by the board, the medical technologist shall be required to surrender his certificate of registration within 30 days after the decision becomes final, under the pain of perpetual disqualification from the practice of medical technology in the Philippines for inexcusable failure to do so. The suspension shall run from the date of such surrender. For those who would want to reread this section, you can find this in Republic Act 5527, Section 24, under Administrative Investigation, Revocation, or Suspension of Certificates. This is the reason why, class, Medical Technology Act of 1969 is the very core of your MT laws and bioethics. You have to familiarize it by heart so that it won't be hard for you to understand the next or the other laws pertaining to RA 5527 because they are somewhat interconnected and related to each other. The entire statement means that no one will be deemed guilty unless they have undergone the proper process of investigation. How is it done again? Remember, at least 2 members of the board shall be there with 1 lawyer or legal officer. While the respondent is also asked to come to court represented by a counsel or a lawyer so that they can cross-examine and investigate the entire procedure truthfully and fairly. There will be no penalty of revocation or suspension to a medical technologist proven innocent. Unless proven guilty, the medical technologist must surrender his or her certificate of registration to the board, and the suspension will carry out after. For the revocation, suspension, and reissue of the PRC certificate, you can also find this provision in the RA 5527. The revocation or suspension of a certificate made by the board shall be subject to appeal to the Civil Service Commissioner, whose decision shall become final 30 days after its promulgation, unless the respondent within the same period has appealed to the Office of the President of the Philippines. The board may, upon application and for reason deemed proper and sufficient, reissue any revoked registration certificate. The suspension of a certificate of registration shall be automatically lifted upon the expiration of the period of suspension, and said certificate shall be reissued to the medical technologies concerned upon request without prejudice to further actions by the board for violation of the provisions of this act or conditions imposed by the board upon the medical technologist during the period of suspension. The meaning of the entire paragraph states that if you have undergone revocation or suspension of your certificate, you can subject to an appeal to the Civil Service Commissioner within 30 days, since that will still be the processing of your revocation or suspension before it becomes final. An appeal, class, means you can ask for a rehearing or address some of the issues that you think are unfairly justified on your end. Next is the inhibition against the medical technology practice. As stated in Republic Act 5527, the provision on the prohibition of medical technology practice merely provides as follows. It means that no person shall practice or offer to practice medical technology as defined in this act without having previously obtained a valid certificate of registration from the board, provided that registration shall not be required of the following: if he or she is a duly registered physician, a medical technologist from other countries called in for consultation, or as visiting or exchange professors to colleges or universities, provided that they are only practicing the said function. And lastly, medical technologists in the service of the United States Armed Forces stationed in the Philippines, rendering services as such for members of the said forces only. You can still find this in Section 14 of RA 5527. In simpler terms, class, that no one can practice medical technology unless you are a graduate of this course, and at the same time, you passed the board examination and gotten your valid certificate of registration. Lastly, continuing professional education. This one class is another requirement in order for one to renew his or her PRC license and certificate of registration. Continuing professional education is an ongoing training that is required in order to remain certified as a professional in different fields. The intent behind this means that you require training to force professionals to continue to update their knowledge of pertinent information that can improve their ability to serve the patients or even their clients. The law mandating this is Executive Order Number 266, which institutionalized the continuing professional education programs of the various professional regulations boards under the suspension of the Professional Regulation Commission. This executive order consists of 5 sections, including the effectivity clause. It took effect on July 25, 1995. As stated, continuing professional education is the mandatory requirement for the renewal of a professional license. Executive Order Number 266 empowers the PRC to adopt policies on continuing professional education programs that can enhance and maintain high professional, technical, and ethical standards in the practice of the profession for implementation by the respective professional regulatory boards. As mandated in the same Executive Order 266, professionals who undertake the CPE programs are enabled not only to upgrade or improve their technical knowledge and skills, but to also show and to keep abreast of the modern trends and technology in their respective professions, thereby reassuring the rendition of highly qualitative professional services that will be globally competitive under the General Agreement on Trade in Services, and at the same time, securing the safety and protection of the public. The confidence and patronage of the public in a professional depend upon his or her competence and the quality of service rendered resulting from his or her acquisition of updated technical knowledge and skills. As what I have said many times, as a medical technologist or even any other professionals are always asked to attend trainings, join seminars, and take certification examinations to update our technical knowledge and even our skills. Just a brief recap, the Professional Regulation Commission was established as a national government agency on June 22, 1973, through Presidential Decree Number 223 signed by former President Ferdinand E. Marcos. It started operations on January 4, 1974 with architect Eric C. Nobla as commissioner. Here are the names of the current Professional Regulations Commission chairman and the other 2 commissioners. The chairman is Honorable Teofilo S. Pilando Jr., while the Commissioner 1 is Honorable Yolanda D. Reyes, and Commissioner 2 is Honorable Jose Y. Cueto Jr. The chairman of the Board of Medical Technology in the year 2021 is Dr. Marilyn A. Cabal Barza, while the other 2 members of the Board of Examiners of Medical Technology is Ms. Marilyn R. Atienza, RMT, and Ms. Marian M. Tantinco, RMT. Thank you so much for listening to our discussion for today. I hope you've learned something new from me and stay safe. God bless us all.